Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 86 of Crunch Time with the N326 duo. I'm your host, Sam Godsey, and with me today is Tanner Dislin. We also have a special guest on the pod for today's episode, my brother, Erich Godsey. Erich, how are you doing?
What up? What up? I'm great. I'm a little nervous. Not gonna lie, a little nervous.
Yeah, it is a little nerve-wracking your first time, but boys, it's the most wonderful time of the year.
I'm doing great too, Sam.
Okay.
Thanks for asking.
I knew you were doing
Thanks
all
for
right.
asking, buddy, old pal.
Well, it's the most wonderful time of the year. As y'all know, it's March, and with that comes the madness. That is going to be the topic of this episode. So, boys, let's break down this bracket on episode 86 of Crunch Time. So, before we get into kind of the nitty gritty of this bracket, I got to know, y'all, how many brackets do y'all fill out? And is it the same? Is it different? Talk to me about that, Erich.
Oh man, I don't do any fun ones anymore. I'm in too many, whether it's work. We got a family one, two family ones, and then normally one of my buddies does the Duke Madness, which Sam, I know you're in. I think there's like 150, 200 people now. So we got like a few serious ones, but I'd say probably 4 or 5 for money each year normally.
Tanner?
So, like, are you talking how many like different versions of the bracket, or how many like pools?
Both.
Right. But because, so I mean, I filled out. I think I filled out like 3, but I'm always like revising. So I pretty much fill out my first impressions, go back, look at matchups, do a little more research, make changes and buff out a few scratches here and there. But by the end, I have one final one, and that's the one I submit in all my.
Wow.
I'm a one bracket guy.
That surprises me. One bracket man.
Just kind of like a take of mine. It's like where it's like, I'll be talking to someone like, "Oh, I had that upset in 2 of my 14 brackets." It's like, "Oh, sick call." You know what I mean? But like, so that's kind of been a pet peeve of mine. But like, a few brackets is fine. But I got one version of my final bracket
impressive.
that I put in multiple different pools. But yeah, I got one, and
so you're all in. You're
all a few revisions.
All win, all lose. No
I like it.
Bingo.
I respect it.
Yeah, I'm kind of on the same page as Erich. I got a couple. I do a fun one. It's usually Iowa versus Arkansas in the championship. Iowa obviously winning.
Pair of 8 seeds.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But, yeah, say for the most part, there's slight changes, but that comes to the Final Four. But most of the upsets I have across the board. Moving on, let's talk about these first 4 out that are on the outside looking in. We got Oklahoma State from the Big 12, Rutgers from the Big 10, the sore losers as North Carolina not even participating in the NIT, and then Clemson. Tanner, give us your thoughts on this first 4 out.
I tell you what, I'd like to play a quick game. Who's in for a game?
I'm in.
All right, here we go. I have 2 teams for you, Team A and Team B.
Oh, no.
Team A is they're also in the same conference. So
okay.
They're in the same conference.
Okay.
Oh, even
Team
better. Even better.
Team A went 23-10, 14-6 in conference. 4-4 in the quad 1, 3-2 in quad 2. I'll repeat these again at the end. Team 2 went 23-10 as well, 12-8 in conference compared to Team A, who was 14-6. They went 1-6 in quad 1 and 7-4 in quad 2, compared to Team A, who went 4-4 and 3-2. Also, these teams played 3 times during the regular season. Team A won all 3 by a score of 96-71, 91-73, and 80-54. Which team made the field?
I'm going to guess the team that lost 3 times.
The team that has the same overall record, 1-6 in quad 1, worst conference record, and lost all 3 matchups against this team. Well, Team A is Clemson, one of the first
One of
four.
the first four.
Team B is North Carolina State, who made the field. So I am a little bit confused on the thought process. I didn't think North Carolina State deserved to be in. I didn't think Nevada deserved to be in. But here we are. So I have a little problem, and those are the ones I have a problem with. But other than that, I'm okay with the field.
Yeah, Eric, you got any thoughts on first four out?
I mean, just UNC saying that they're not going to go to the NIT is probably the biggest sore loser. We're on this pedestal mentality that we're too good for it. I mean, what a joke. Just an absolute fall apart of a program in a year, which I just don't hate at all. I actually quite love it, but that's neither here nor there. That's my only comment on that one.
Yeah.
I tell you what, I would like to go back to when it seemed like North Carolina had solidified themselves as the better program by beating Coach K on the road at his last home game, beating them in the Final Four, telling all the North Carolina fans, you're not gonna make the field next year.
Yeah, that's a tough look. That's a tough look. But all right, let's hop right into it. We are gonna start out in the South region, and that contains the number 1 overall seed, Alabama. Eric, what are some matchups you're looking forward to in this region?
Oh, man. One that I really love that I think will just be an overall good game, I think, is Mizzou, Utah State. Utah State coming out of the Mountain West. Obviously, Mountain West teams normally don't do too hot in the tournament. But Mizzou pretty much just has Kobe Brown, obviously being in the SEC and Arkansas playing him. I just know if you can shut him down, you're pretty much set to win a game. So that's one that I'm looking forward to if they can do that. Another one that I have an upset in is Furman over Virginia. I love that game. Virginia, we all know, is known for their defense, but can hopefully score 35 and hold the other team to 34. So those are two that I'm really looking forward to, just from a one-on-one matchup kind of stuff. So
yeah, I like that. I think Furman over Virginia is going to be a common one we see. As you said, a very defensive heavy team. Tanner.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree with the Missouri-Utah State. One of my pre-bracket notes, as you said, do not trust the Mountain West. 4 Mountain West teams in. I have all 4 of them losing because finally I'm going to listen to myself watch San Diego State go on a run. But still, I agree with you on the Missouri-Utah State game. I'd like to throw in Maryland-West Virginia, two high-profile programs that didn't seem to have the year that really they expected, couldn't really get things going, but at times have looked like a very, very good team. I mean, Maryland competing in that Big Ten, having some quality wins at home, have looked absolutely abysmal on the road.
Yeah.
Like worse splits than Iowa on the road. And West Virginia, a team that kind of went through the gauntlet in the Big 12. And, it just is whenever you get Bob Huggins, you're going to get a good defensive team.
Yeah.
Press Virginia, you know how that goes. So
yeah,
I'm looking forward to this game. I actually have West Virginia in that for the reasons I said. I don't think I can trust Maryland not at the Xfinity Center.
Yeah.
So I'm leaning West Virginia there, but I would like to add that one in a game I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of good matchups potentially. I'm looking at this Creighton Baylor game in the second round. Creighton has got win off to start the season. Has played really well. Baylor hasn't been up to par as of late. They took an L in the Big 12 to Iowa State. So that's kind of the one I'm looking at in the second round. Do y'all have any other potential matchups y'all are looking at from the second round to the Elite Eight and potentially?
I mean, going off what Tanner said, just from a defensive standpoint, I think Bama, everyone is saying they have an easy route, but just West Virginia, like you said, crazy press, crazy defense. Brandon Miller obviously being the incredible player, still an 18, 19-year-old where you can get in his head. And we've definitely seen West Virginia teams do that. And then if they make it through that, I think San Diego State has a good chance of making the Sweet 16. if we're going off the Ken Palm and top 20 stuff, I mean, they're a great defensive, great offensive team. So, Bama definitely has the easiest out of the ones, but I wouldn't say it's, just every single matchup. You're like, yep, Bama 100%. So,
Yeah.
um, I think even if they make it to the Elite Eight and they may reach an Arizona who's got two big men who are just absolute studs and, can happen in March. Who gets hot?
Yeah. Got any other matchups you're looking
Yeah,
out
I'm
for?
going to go back to a team we had already talked about in that potential round of 32 matchup of Missouri Arizona. I think that could be a very fun game too. You mentioned how Missouri is very reliant on one player, but I've kind of been on this Missouri team. I kind of like them as a team that was overlooked in, I mean, a very good SEC this year. So I actually do have Missouri beating Arizona and going into the Sweet 16. So that's a game I'm looking at. I think it could be a good game, a potential upset for Missouri.
Yeah. Speaking of upsets, there's a lot of potential upsets here. Some of the games I'm looking at is Charleston over San Diego State. Charleston can hoop. They score a lot of points. And like we said, Mountain West, not the most competitive when it comes to basketball. So that's kind of like my big upset pick. Eric, do you have any? You kind of already mentioned the Furman over Virginia. Is that your upset pick for the South region?
Yeah, that's my upset. Before they released the bracket, Charleston was definitely one that I had circled until I had the San Diego State. So still one there I'm kind of teetering back and forth on, but I definitely have Furman just because of Virginia's just no offense there. So
Yeah, and so we kind of already broke down everything we need to talk about in the South, other than who y'all got coming out of the South region. Tanner?
I'm gonna go with the number one overall seed. I know it's not all that exciting, but that number one overall seed for a reason. You mentioned the discourse that Alabama has an easy schedule. Well, actually, some of the upsets we talked about, I have both Furman and Charleston winning, and so I have Charleston going into the Sweet 16. So that Elite Eight match or the Sweet 16 matchup, excuse me, between Alabama and Charleston is one a little bit on the easier side.
Yeah.
And I have my sleeper team in this bracket comes out of the bottom side of this region. I don't know if that's a topic, and we're going to talk about in a minute. But I got Bama here. I just think they're, as you said, Brandon Miller, one of the best players in the country, and just really great defensive team, probably the best defensive team in the nation. So I'm going with Bama here. I think they'll make the Final Four.
Eric?
I got Arizona coming out of it. I don't know. Just obviously 3-point shooting teams, if you're hot, you're pretty much going as far as you can, but you have that one slump. And I just think we haven't seen it from Bama, so I'm kind of hoping it happens, to be honest with you, coming from the SEC. But, this is one that I had trouble with because I threw Baylor in there, I threw Creighton, but Arizona's got the two bigs, and I'm rolling with them.
Yeah, I got Bama as well. I think there are a couple sleepers. One sleeper I'm looking at is Baylor. I think their guards are some of the best in the nation, headlined by Keontae George. I've seen him play quite a bit, and I like what he does on the floor. The hiccup in the Big 12 tournament, I mean, Big 12, we've mentioned how big of a gauntlet that is to come out of there as champions, but Baylor's kind of my sleeper team in the South region. Tanner?
Yeah, mine, I mentioned I had them making the Elite Eight coming out of the bottom side of this bracket. You actually mentioned them, Eric, real quick. I got Creighton here. This was a team that I was very high on preseason. They had a high preseason ranking, got off to a real nice start, racking up a couple quality wins. I know one was against Arkansas. And then they kind of went on hit a tough stretch. They lost to Nebraska in that in-state matchup. I think they lost to Arizona in there. They lost 6 straight coming out of the early season tournaments, and that kind of knocked them out of the rankings. And they never quite got back to it. I know they had a rough showing in the Big East tournament. They kind of got smoked by Xavier, but Creighton is a team that I think has a lot of talent. Ryan Nemhard, their best guard, Arthur Kaluma on the wing. I like this team a lot. I think they have a chance to make some noise. And I mentioned the Missouri taking out Arizona pick I had earlier. I think that just makes it an even easier road for Creighton. So I think I got the Blue Jays here. I got them making the Elite Eight.
Eric?
I like it. I had that originally, and I talked myself out of it. But yeah, Arkansas played Creighton. Creighton was a great team. Some say that we broke Creighton because as soon as they beat us, they lost 6 in a row. So, the potential's there. But yeah, I think you can't really go wrong with Bama, Arizona, and even a few other teams to throw in there.
Yeah. Moving on to the East bracket, we have Purdue as the number 1 seed. What are some matchups we are looking forward to, Eric?
Oh man, biggest one for me is Memphis FAU, just because I think either one of those teams is going to give Purdue some hell. Obviously, Memphis last year, almost beat Gonzaga, and I think arguably their team got better this year. So that's one that I'm looking forward to just for the future matchups, and I think one that every single person has circled is probably Duke and Oral Roberts.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people either have Oral Roberts winning, and go into the Sweet 16, or they have Duke winning and then Duke potentially going to their Final Four. So, I mean, Oral Roberts has A. Smith, who almost hit a buzzer beater to win in the Sweet 16 versus Arkansas 2 years ago. They got Vanover, who used to be at Arkansas, who's, I think, averaging like 13-9 for them. So, they have a lot of guys that have been to the tournament before, but golly, they got a horrible matchup. I mean, Duke is just on a hot streak right now. So those are two that I'm really looking forward to, and I think they both play on Thursday, so don't have to wait for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm really frustrated for Oral Roberts. Everything you said, Eric. I mean, like you said, you had Charleston circled.
Yeah,
a lot of people did had Oral Roberts circled. Like, wow, this team's really going to make some noise. I'm really looking forward to this. And then they draw the hottest team in college basketball.
Yeah.
Right. And so now we're looking at this matchup here, wondering like how on earth did this happen? I personally think the best 12 seed and the best 5 seed happen to play each other, which is really annoying. Memphis, Florida Atlantic. I think what you had said, Eric, with Oral Roberts and Duke, I also have with this Memphis, Florida Atlantic. A lot of people, I think, are going to look at Memphis. They won the American. They played a Houston team, granted without Marcus Sasser. He had come off the injury in the semifinal, but they saw them handle business against Houston. They might think this is a walk in the park for Memphis. This FAU team is really damn good. 31 wins, tied with Charleston for the most in the field. FAU is really damn good, but if Memphis beats them, as you said, I like Memphis's chances against Purdue and to even go further than that. So that's going to be a big one. I'm going to go down to the bottom of the bracket. Give me USC and Michigan State. I'm very intrigued by this matchup. There's a stat out there that like the Big Ten, as bad as they have been in recent memory in March Madness, in that 7-10 matchup, because they usually have a decent pack in the middle of the bracket. In that 7-10 matchup, the Big Ten has been like absolute money. They don't lose it. Iowa's been there a lot, which is weird. But looking at the actual matchup, I kind of like USC here. I think USC is a team that's been overlooked out west. A lot of people talking about UCLA, talking about Arizona. I think USC is a pretty good team. I like them to beat Michigan State, but I think this should be a good one on the bottom of the bracket there.
Yeah, those are all great matchups. Y'all kind of took my answers with Memphis, Florida Atlantic, and Oral Roberts Duke. So I'm gonna go to that next round, and I got Purdue, Memphis. I personally think Purdue's very overrated. I think if Zach Edey wasn't on that team, they'd be middle tier of the Big Ten. I like that matchup. I like this Kentucky, Kansas State. I think Kansas State is mad underrated this year. When again, this can be a common theme throughout the tournament. The gauntlet of the Big 12 performed well, finished with a record of 23-9. I like what they've done all season. So that UK Kansas State game is going to be a fun one to watch. So those are kind of my second round matchups I'm looking at. Going to be a lot of fun. Do y'all have any more matchups y'all are looking out for and possibly upsets? Eric,
no big upsets from my end. Well, I say that other than obviously the Memphis Purdue, which I think is a pretty popular pick. Another one that kind of catches my eye, honestly, is this Michigan State Marquette game. If Michigan State makes it out, of course. I just don't know a lot about USC being in the West Coast games, and I don't stay up that late. So, but no, Michigan State, I mean, they're third in 3-point percentage, and you just never know what Izzo's going to do with the team in March. So, I mean, if they get hot, win that first round, come to Marquette. Marquette does not have a great defense. I mean, I think the last 2 times they played St. John's, which, RIP Mike Anderson from Arkansas and St. John's. But, I mean, they barely beat them twice, and that was not a very good St. John's team. So, they've had great games with the Big East and Xavier and Providence and everyone like that. And it just obviously it takes one team to get hot. So I actually have Michigan State over Marquette, as well as Memphis over Purdue. So those are my 2 big matchups, coming from there.
Yeah, I think I'm going to make it a clean sweep here. I also have Memphis over Purdue. When you're so reliant on, as you said, Sam, Zach Edey, he is picks up a second foul with 16 left in the first half, and Purdue's in the shitter, right?
Yeah.
Like, how do you play against the athleticism, the speed of Memphis without your best player on the floor? And I think they're really going to struggle. I don't know why Big Ten teams do not press Purdue until they're down like 12 with 5 minutes left in the game. Then you got to press, and oh my God, you're back in the game because Purdue cannot break a press to save their life. Well, guess what? Guess who's not afraid to press? Penny Hardaway and the Memphis Tigers. They'll get in your face. They are crazy athletic. They are crazy fast. I think this is a matchup nightmare for Purdue. But again, don't sleep on Florida Atlantic because they can come out of that. And I also think Florida Atlantic would give Purdue a run for their money as well.
Yeah.
Another one I personally am looking at. I do have Oral over Duke. I think Sam. Can you think of a team maybe last year that was a 5 seed? That was one of the hottest teams in the tournament that won their conference tournament and was a trendy pick to go to the Final Four.
No, I don't want to remember.
Yeah, I don't either. But
yeah, I'd black it out of my mind too.
Duke is the Iowa of this year. They're the hottest team in college basketball, but here come Oral Roberts. They're going to win that game over Duke, and then actually have them beating Tennessee as well, going into the Sweet 16. Tennessee losing their point guard. That is a huge loss for the Volunteers. So I've got A. Smith. I've got he can score the basketball like nobody else in the bracket. So I've got Oral Roberts going to the Sweet 16. So those would be my sets. Which sets up a Memphis Oral Roberts Sweet 16 matchup.
Oh my God.
That is something.
Yes.
That is something, Tanner.
You're talking about
you kind of mentioned your big upset and kind of dark horse. Eric, who's your dark horse for the East?
Oh goodness. I mean, I think the Oral Roberts pick is a great one. I think if Memphis does make it past their first 2, I think Memphis could honestly kill Oral Roberts. I mean, just the athleticism alone, I think they could do it. So that's one team. And depending on who they match up with in potentially the Elite 8, I mean, you're looking at a Memphis in the Final Four, which, I'd be pretty excited to see.
Yeah, I like that Memphis pick. For me, that's why I like it because I also had Memphis. Everything you said. Potential of Duke being upset in that first round kind of makes it a little easier. Just got to worry about that Purdue in matchup in the second round. So Memphis is also my kind of dark horse.
Yeah, I mean, I just mentioned how I had him in my Elite 8. So, I mean, I definitely co-signed that. Another team, you mentioned Sam, Kansas State. That Marquette-Kansas State matchup in the Sweet 16, one I debated a lot. I personally do like this Marquette team. You mentioned they had some struggles on defense. That is an area of concern. I am going to lean Marquette in this matchup by an ever so slight margin, but this Kansas State Marquette one was one I thought about for a very long time. So don't sleep if Kansas State goes on a little bit of a run here. A team that's not getting as much light as some of the others in the region. Yeah.
And finally, you know where I'm going with this. Tanner, who do you got coming out of the East?
Well, my Elite 8 matchup, of Marquette versus Memphis. I'm going to go with the Golden Eagles. I know it's a little gross to trust Marquette. it's one of those things. But I like the way they were looking in the Big East tournament. Kind of gave Xavier the business. Kind of handled things. Wasn't really all that close a game. I'm gonna roll with Shaka Smart getting back to the Final Four.
There you
For
go.
the first time.
The mid-major king. The mid-major king, baby.
Yep. Eric, who do you have coming out of the East?
I mean, as unconfident as I am with the Duke or Roberts, I think if Duke wins that first game, I think they're making it out. I think that's the role they need, and they're probably facing a Tennessee team that's missing their starting point guard with an ACL, and I think they clean it up after that. So I got Duke coming out.
Yep, I also have Duke. But a lot of craziness can happen in this bracket for sure.
Hey, Sam, before I move on, I got one question for the group here. I want to take a look at this 6-11 matchup, Kentucky-Providence.
Yeah.
If Providence wins this game, is John Calipari chased out of Lexington with pitchforks and burning torches?
I'll let the SEC fan answer this one first.
They ended on a little bit of a hotter streak than I think people gave them credit for. My biggest thing is who do they go after? Who I guess is right. I mean, you gave them one chip.
Mike Anderson.
I mean, they get countless top 10 recruiting classes, and I think he just hasn't really touched into that transfer portal yet. But I personally think he's on the hot seat just because Kentucky fans are insane. And
they are insane.
Yeah.
That's why I'm saying, like, the AD might want to keep him, but he's going to be forced to vacate the state from fans that are the mob that's chasing him out. But.
Yeah, I think just with what Kentucky has done in the past 10 years, it's hard not to say he's not on the hot seat, but I think, like Eric said, who else are they getting grabbed?
And I think if they lose this game, it's they will have not won a March Madness game since 2019.
Wow.
2019 was their last March Madness
and
game.
It's not like they haven't had the talent either. That's for
sure.
They were a 2 seed last year.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
The Peacocks. Legends. All right. Moving on to the Midwest, we have Houston as the number 1 seed. A lot of good matchups in this one. I think this is another one that can be turned into craziness. Tanner, Iowa got a tough draw here against Auburn. What are your thoughts on that matchup?
Oh, man. I tell you what, 2 completely contrasting play styles, so that could be interesting. Like, if the game is played at Iowa's pace, there's a good chance they win this game. Auburn doesn't really score at the pace that Iowa does. Yeah. Well, there has been a big drop-off in their scoring and their efficiency when they're not at home. Guess where this game is? 2 hours away from freaking Auburn's campus when Iowa is the higher seed. But it's all about imposing their will, right? If Auburn's able to slow the game down, play defense in the half court, great defensive team, great perimeter defensive team. Iowa doesn't shoot the ball well on the road, so if their defense is able to take care, play at a slower pace, limit Iowa's 3-point attempts, and force them to shoot as they have been when they've been on the road, I think Auburn kind of takes this game by the horns and wins this semi-comfortably. But again, if Iowa's able to speed them up, get in transition, maybe Iowa can come out with the victory here. I don't have it. I just personally, it's just always, it's excuse my French, just Fran fucking McCaffrey in the goddamn tournament. But just a little bit of a personal hedge would be good with Auburn. But I do think Auburn will win. But it's definitely an interesting game just because of the completely different teams. Completely different.
Absolutely. Eric, as an SEC fan, give us some hope, something. We need it a little bit.
Well, first off, when they're coming out with the bracket and I saw Iowa at an 8, and I was like, this is probably going to be an SEC team. And I saw that A come across as a 9. I thought there is no way this is going to be Arkansas, right?
I will say I'd rather play Auburn than Arkansas. So that's
Auburn's crazy athletic. They're crazy quick. They got pretty much one guy who's either going to drop 30 or he's going to have the worst game ever in their point guard, which I can't think of his name right now. But Iowa, you just never know. They could score crazy 116 in an OT like they did versus Michigan State, or they could lose to somebody by 20. It's just, and that's the same with Auburn. Auburn went on a little bit of a hot streak and then lost like 4 in a row, and you never know what you're going to get with Auburn, which we were up by 15 and we're extremely inconsistent. So I have Iowa winning that game just because Arkansas is a 50-50 toss up on how good we are, and we beat them. So I could see Iowa winning that one.
Yeah, just to throw some more color in there for the group. We talk about this all the time, and I just really wanted to hammer this home, just the inconsistency. Iowa scoring 116 against Michigan State and going into Bloomington at Assembly Hall and beating Indiana by 22 on the road after Indiana beat Purdue, but then going 2-6 against the bottom 4 teams in the Big Ten.
Yeah,
that's the Iowa way,
and
baby.
With all of that, all we had to do was beat Nebraska at home, and we would have been the 2 seed in the Big Ten.
Not that it would have mattered, but
not that it would have mattered.
Yeah. So obviously, Auburn being Iowa fans is a matchup we're looking at. But Eric, who are some of the matchups you're looking forward to in this region?
Man, one that is like one of my favorites in the entire bracket is Texas A&M Penn State. A&M got absolutely screwed at a 7 seed. Just the fact that, as the finishing 2 in the SEC, you got Tennessee who's a 4, Kentucky is 6. I personally think that's outrageous. But, Penn State made a hell of a run in the Big Ten tournament. They're the oldest team in the tournament. They shoot the 3 well, which, A&M is a team that packs the paint. And they're a team that's like, you know what, if you want to shoot over us, but may fall right into the hands of Penn State. So that's a game that I'm looking forward to. I have Penn State in that one. Another one that I kind of had circled pre-bracket was like I'm picking them regardless is Kent State. Early in the year, they had a freaking haymaker game with Houston, and it was like 48-45 or something like that. So, they kind of changed the way people play, and I think they have a good chance to do that against Indiana. They have, that one guy, Tracy Jackson or whatever his name is. I feel like if they can throw him off, Kent State has a great chance to win that game as well.
Yeah, I like that pick. Tanner, who are you looking at here?
I love everything that Eric just said. I completely agree. Had this circle, Texas A&M got screwed. Everything you said. Number 2 seed in the SEC. They go to the conference championship game. They win every game they're supposed to, and they lose to the number 1 overall seed, and they get a 7.
Yeah.
I don't really understand that at all. Everything you said about Penn State, I agree. I like Penn State in this game. I like Jalen Pickett a lot. I think he's the best player. He's going to be the best player on the floor in this game. I think he was NCAA all second team. This dude can absolutely score the basketball for Penn State. Totally agree on Kent State. Again, we're on the same wavelength here. Had them circled as well. I got the Golden Flashes in that game as well over the Hoosiers. I also have the Bulldogs representing the Hawkeye State a little bit. I think they'll be able to beat Miami. Miami's an interesting team to me. At times, they've looked really good. At times, we talk about inconsistency all the time. Blowing a 25-point lead at home to Florida State, one of the worst teams in the ACC. So the inconsistency of Miami and the 12-5, we all know how that goes. So again, another one where I've got Drake over Miami. I've got Kent State over Indiana, and I got the Bulldogs making a trip to the Sweet 16.
Yeah, I like that pick a lot. Some of the other matchups, kind of looking forward into the tourney. How can you not love the potential of A&M versus Texas, Battle of Texas right there in Des Moines, even better. But a lot of good games. Some of the upsets I'm looking at, I love that Drake over Miami. I don't care who wins. I know this game's about to start. Mississippi State or Pitt. I would not be shocked if we see either of them upset Iowa State. Iowa State, very defense heavy, don't really have a go-to guy. Kauscher has kind of filled that role in the Big 12 tourney, but definitely lean more towards the defensive side of things. And then A&M over Texas, I like that too. It's just like everything y'all have said. They got screwed. They should be higher than a 7 seed, and they're going to play with a chip on their shoulder. And what better to do it over your in-state rival, Texas?
Yeah, I totally agree on the Mississippi State Pitt game. I in that game I lean Pitt, and I have them beating Iowa State as well. However, if Mississippi State wins, I like them over Iowa State more than I like Pitt
There
over
you
Iowa
go.
State, because you mentioned Iowa State. Not they don't really score a lot. They're kind of like a muck it up kind of
Yeah.
team. They love to get in these low scoring. Mississippi State does that possibly the best in the country of just low scoring, just scrappy,
Yeah.
get stops and not score a lot of points. So I think Mississippi State is very comfortable playing that style of game, and
Yeah.
it's a game they've won over and over and over again. So I like Mississippi State even more than Pitt, but either way, I also have both of them moving on. And then I have them moving on over Xavier as well. I've got them over the Musketeers, giving this winner of the game about to start, the Mississippi State Pittsburgh game, going to the Sweet 16. I mean, that's a trend we've seen. We've seen one of the play-in teams, one of those 11 seeds, seems to go to the Sweet 16 almost every year. And then we had UCLA go to the Final Four that win. I believe Syracuse went to the Final Four as a play-in team as well. So it's a trend we see often. So I'm rolling with it this year.
Yeah. Eric, do you have any more upsets, matchups you're looking throughout the Midwest past the first round?
No more upsets. Pretty standard going forward. I got Houston beating Iowa in that next game. Hopefully Sassler's back. That's one that concerns me in the injury department, just because a sprained groin is one that you make one wrong move again and it gets tweaked, and I mean you're pretty much out. So don't be surprised if they sit him for that first game, and then if it's just a bloodbath between Iowa and Auburn and sloppy, they could to the Sweet 16. But if Iowa or Auburn just kind of winningly, by 20 or something like that, then he may come back sooner than they'd like. But other than that, after that first round of Kent State and possibly Drake winning, I don't have any other crazy upsets from here on out.
Yeah. So a lot of kind of chalky and potential upsets across the Midwest. A lot of good matchups. A lot of potential upsets. Who's y'all's dark horse coming out of the Midwest? Eric, you could go ahead with this one.
I do have Iowa State making the Sweet 16. Honestly, not for any particular reason. Just like you said, Mississippi State is just one of those teams that can just be so bad. I mean, they're the worst in the entire D1 in 3-point percentage. So, I mean, it can't get any worse than that. So that's a tough one for me to pick them over. And then Xavier is just, you never know with Big East teams. I mean, they could come out and beat them by 20, or they could get beat by 20. But Iowa State forcing like 17 turnovers a game is a huge plus. So I got Iowa State facing Texas in the Sweet 16, and then Texas winning that one out.
Yeah, I also have that matchup. I've watched a lot of Iowa State this year. And like everyone says, defense travels, and Iowa State is really good at defense. So I like that as well. Iowa State in the Sweet 16.
Yeah, I tell you what, I'm going to go with two teams. A game they play each other, and it's a game we talked about a lot. And it's going to be the winner of this Texas A&M Penn State game. We saw what these teams were able to do when they got some momentum at their back in their conference tournaments, right? I mean, Texas A&M literally only losing to the number one seed in the entire bracket, and Penn State losing by 2 to a team with a 7-4 guy who had like 33 or 35 or something that game, right? So these teams can play. Again, I really like Jalen Pickett as a player. I think he's a type of player to put a team on their back. And I think if Penn State were to go, it'll be on the back of him. So I think Penn State's got the star power. I think Texas A&M is a damn good basketball team and one that can get hot. So the winner of that, I think, can make a run.
Yeah, I like that as well. So we kind of talked about matchups we're looking forward to, upset picks, dark horses. Who do we have coming out of the Midwest? Eric, you could kick us off here.
I got Texas coming out. I just think Big 12, like you've been saying, the gauntlet's crazy. I mean, if they can get Timmy Allen fully healthy back again, their team's just really complete. They're just so unselfish. I will say the one matchup at the very beginning scares me with Colgate. That number one overall 3-point shooting team in the nation is a little scary. But just, I think, pure athleticism. I think the second half, Texas blows that out of the water. So I got Texas and Houston in the Elite Eight. I think Texas kills the dreams of Houston winning a championship in their city. But yeah, I got Texas.
Exact same. I also have Texas. I have them beating Houston in the Elite Eight. Houston was a team that I was pretty certain I was going to have them go to the Final Four and may even win the whole damn thing until Marcus Sasser got injured. As you mentioned, that groin injury, that soft tissue, man, it is so hard to get over. Not to mention just it's in an unfortunate place, and it's a groin is a muscle you use a lot on the basketball court. And even if he comes back and he's not at 100%, that is a huge hit to Houston.
Yeah.
And everything you said about Texas, so athletic. I mean, Marcus Carr, we saw him all the way when he was back in Minnesota, putting up numbers. And now that he's gone to Texas, has continued the same as high quality player and the depth. They are so deep, that Texas team. I think they're the second deepest team in the nation, of course, behind Alabama, who happens to be the number 1 seed. But yeah, I like this Texas team a lot. And I think two of their last like 5 games, they played Kansas and they beat them by 16 and 20 in those 2 games. So riding the hot hand, real deep team, real athletic. I'm going Texas here.
Well, all of us have the same Elite Eight, and all of us have Texas coming out. I think you nailed it, Tanner. Houston, we saw him without Sasser. And even if he does come back, it's going to be tough beating that Texas team. So I also have Texas. And on to the final region, the West. Kansas is the number 1 seed. And Erich's Razorbacks at the 8 seed taking on Illinois. Erich, talk to us about this matchup.
I mean, this is my team. This is my ride or dies, but good Lord, every single thing I've listened to, read, talked to people, it is a coin flip. It sounds like Illinois is the exact same team as us. They'll either play the best game ever or they'll just absolutely fall apart. So Arkansas loves to go up by about 15 in the first half, and then they just decide to throw out their game plan and play a whole different ball game in the second half. So I obviously have the Hogs. I mean, we got 2 lottery picks. We got Jordan Walsh, who is a Burger Boy, McDonald's All-American. You got Ricky Council scoring about 15 a game. There's just so much athleticism, and at the end of the day, it's still a young team, but I think they'll figure it out. Muss knows how to win in March, as we've seen with, back-to-back Elite Eights. But
subtle flex. I see how it is.
But I got the Hogs over Illinois, even though pretty much I think everyone in the country agrees with this 8-9. It's a 50-50 coin flip if you don't have any ties to the teams or you just don't know. So
yeah.
Dude, this region.
Oh, dude, death row.
Cross out the records and just look at the talent. I think there are 6 teams in this region that have the talent to win a national championship.
Yeah, it's
Kansas
crazy.
Kansas has the talent. Arkansas has the talent. Illinois has the talent. UConn has the talent. Gonzaga has the talent, and UCLA has the talent. There are 6 teams that, if you throw away everything, just look at the pound for pound talent on their team, there are 6 teams that can win a national championship. And preseason, if you told me one of those 6 teams won a national championship, I would not be surprised at all.
Yeah.
And this is an absolute gauntlet. Absolute gauntlet. Totally agree on the Arkansas-Illinois game. Just to the exact same team. So much talent. Preseason, high expectations, injury issues, underperformance issues, all of the above. I also have Arkansas in this game, partially because I just really hate Illinois.
I'll take it.
But also a coin flip. Another one where, similar to the Memphis FAU game, the winner of this against Kansas can cause maybe some upset alert. But that I mean, I don't know what else to say other than that game is like must see.
Yeah,
must see.
And we get to see it.
We get to see it in person.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm a little jealous of that. I mean, even to talk more about just how much of a death row. Just, I mean, if you're looking at KenPom, there are 4 teams in the top 8, I think, and there's 5 in the top 11, which is just, you got UCLA. I mean, you got the Zags, UConn. I'm pretty sure St. Mary's is in the top 10. I mean, it's just unreal. Gonzaga at 3 is crazy to me.
Yeah, this is by far the toughest region. Just a brief comment on the Arkansas-Illinois game. Like you said, a lot of injuries. I think Arkansas has the talent to win it, or at least make it to the Final Four. They have Anthony Black, lottery pick, Nick Smith Jr., who is one of the best players in the entire bracket. He just makes stupid freshman mistakes, but he can get a bucket when need be. But a lot of good matchups, a lot of crazy matchups. Anything can happen in this region. So let's dive right into it. Eric, what are some matchups you're looking forward to? Obviously, already mentioned that Arkansas-Illinois game. I think everybody is looking forward to that. But you got any more in first round and beyond?
Yeah, a big one that I actually love is this UNC or UCLA UNC Asheville. That is a game that I think a lot of people are sleeping on just because it is a 2-15. But UNC Asheville, they shoot the ball super well. Their leading scorer is a Tennessee transfer who played exceptionally well at Tennessee and is now absolutely balling for them. So UCLA is a little hurt. Obviously, that 2-15 matchup no one expects, and if there's a team to do it, that's the one that I'm rolling with. So I actually have UCLA hopping out that first round. Another upset that I like is the VCU St. Mary's, just that 12-5. There's always, I feel like, got to be one every single year. So that's another one that I've grabbed.
Fair.
Yeah, I tell you what, in the first round, in this region, I personally have it a little bit chalky. Don't have a ton of upsets in the first round. That UCLA one is interesting. UCLA was another team of mine, similar to Houston, where I was like, I'm pretty confident I'm going to have this team going to the Final Four. Jalen Clark goes down. Pac-12 Defensive Player of the Year goes down. Their best defender. That really hurts. Basically took them out of, especially in the difficulty of this region. So UNC Asheville, I could totally see that one happening. I mentioned it before. I am going to hop on the Must Bus, and they're going to take out Kansas in the next round because, Sam and Eric, fun fact of the day, the last four defending champions have been eliminated in the round of 32. Last year it was Baylor to UNC. The year before that, there was no reigning champion. The year before that, there was no tournament. The year before that, I think it was Villanova. The year before that, UNC. The year before that, Villanova. So the defending champion for 4 years in a row has gone out in the round of 32. I think this year will be no different. I mean, everything I mentioned, so talented. Definitely had a year that probably they would have expected more, but the talent is still there. Multiple lottery picks. Mr. March, right? So I've got the Pigs going to the Sweet 16.
Yeah, I also have that. I think honestly, all the matchups, Arkansas, Illinois is a matchup I'm really looking forward to. Kansas versus Arkansas, a repeat of the bowl game. So that'll be fun. And then Arkansas, UConn is going to be another great matchup. That is a gauntlet for Arkansas. We're going to find out a lot about this Arkansas team just after the first matchup.
By the way, I said it after the bowl game. By the way, Arkansas won that bowl game. If Arkansas beats Kansas in this round of 32 matchup, you now have to call that state Kansas. It is now Kansas.
100%.
Arkansas and Kansas because they're 2-0. They're 2-0 in postseason against you now. So it's now Kansas.
I mean, with that, along with that first matchup being what people are calling the Bielema Bowl, you got
of course. Bert better be there. Bert better be there. And it's in Des Moines.
Yeah.
I mean, my dude has a Tiger Hawk tattoo.
Yeah.
Get Bert here.
He's got it all.
Get Bert here.
He's got it all going.
Wisconsin involved.
There you go. There's got to be a transfer on Arkansas or Illinois from Wisconsin, I'm sure.
I'm sure the importer brought in a...
Yeah. But yeah, a lot of good matchups at that top half. Do y'all have any more matchups y'all are looking at, potential upsets?
I mean, I guess technically it's an upset, but the 2-3 at the bottom of the bracket between Gonzaga and UCLA, I mentioned, as you did, Eric, as well, the injuries to UCLA, how much that hurts. And I actually have Gonzaga in this game because, I mean, for the first time in how long, Mark Few and the Bulldogs have no expectations
Yep.
whatsoever. And to me, that's a scary sight. I do have them going into the Elite Eight because, of course, I feel like this will be the year where you're actually impressed by Gonzaga when they have no expectations. So I've got the Bulldogs beating UCLA. But other than that, like I said, kind of on the chalkier side for me. Other than some of the ones I mentioned.
Yeah. Eric, you got any upsets further on going into that Elite Eight Final Four?
I'm with you. I got Zags again. There's no number one overall seed. There's not like any crazy, to my knowledge, lottery picks that I know about that they got, like Chet, who's he's a one and done. We got to get him a ship, or they're just chilling at that 3 seed. I think they can make it out of the first 2 rounds pretty easily. TCU will be tough, but I think once they make it out of that, I think they path, and they could even make a Final Four and go on further. But I actually have UNC Asheville making it the first 2 rounds to play Gonzaga, and I think if that happens, the Zags are sitting pretty. So you got Timmy in his last year; he's ready to win a ship.
Yeah, I like Gonzaga going far. I have them actually moving on to Final Four. But one of my upset picks, I got Northwestern taking down UCLA. We already mentioned them losing the Pac-12 Defensive Player of the Year. Northwestern played really well. Backcourt, unbelievable backcourt. Kind of dominated the Big Ten this year. I like Northwestern eking out a win over UCLA and then dropping one to Gonzaga. I mentioned I have Gonzaga in the Final Four. Who do y'all have coming out of the West?
I also have Gonzaga coming out. I got Arkansas making their third straight Elite Eight. I think if they can get past that first hump, maybe get Kansas slipping a little bit. If they're playing their best ball, I really don't think anyone can beat them. But I think if they were to make it to the Elite Eight, I think Gonzaga gets their revenge from last year, and the Zags push through.
Yeah, I actually have UConn winning this region. This is a team I like a lot. I know there's some pretty some public love out there for UConn. I like Dan Hurley a lot as a coach. This team is crazy talented. They started off like 15-0. Again, ran into a little bit of a rough stretch directly after it. I think they lost like 6 straight, similar to Creighton, honestly. But with one rough stretch and then starting off hot, rough stretch, then kind of coasting out the rest of the season. I like UConn. 2 of my 4 Final Four out of the Big East. Liking the Big East this year, but I got the Huskies and Dan Hurley winning the South or the West. Excuse me.
Yeah, I have UConn going to the Elite Eight. But who we kind of mentioned are the Final Four. Who are kind of the dark horses that not a lot of people are giving the credit to? Eric, go ahead.
Obviously, being a Hog fan, I think a lot of people, they're looking at the record, picks, but just it's a team that hasn't been put together. So again, they could lose first round, or I truly wouldn't be surprised if it's a Final Four team. I mean, with that much talent, you get a bunch of 19-year-olds that start treating it like an AAU games, and it's just AAU tournament, and it's just let's go out there, have some fun and ball. I mean, you just never know what's going to happen. So I like them. I think the UConn pick is a great one too. I mean, I'm pretty sure early in the year they were once like the number 1 overall team, if I'm not mistaken. So they obviously know how to win. I like that pick as well, making to the Final Four.
Fair.
I tell you what, a sleeper team here is one that was, I think we mentioned only very briefly. I personally don't have them going far, but I think that's just a testament to the depth of this region and not necessarily this team. They did lose a big piece to their team, but I still think this is a damn good basketball team. I'm going to go with TCU. This is a good basketball team. They I mean, in round one, or I think it might have been round two because they had the bye, but their first game in the Big 12 tournament, they played Kansas State, a team that we gave some love to previously, and beat them. Then they went on to play Texas. I think they gave them a little bit of a run for the money, beat them earlier in the season. Again, we talk about strength of conference, right? The battle tested. They're battle tested because they play in the toughest conference, but I like TCU a lot. However, Eddie Lampkin, their senior, who was a big part of this team, and I honestly had TCU beating Gonzaga until I heard about Eddie Lampkin news, because I feel like he would absolutely, about a person of his size and skill, I think he would kind of dominate Drew Timme in the post.
Yeah,
be a huge advantage for the Horned Frogs, but him not playing is going to hurt. So I flipped that to Gonzaga, but I would not be surprised if this TCU team makes a run.
Yeah, that's also one I have kind of circled, but I mean, how can you not go with UConn or Arkansas? Kind of started out this season with high expectations, didn't really live up to them, but still incredible teams. So we have broke down all the matchups we like, potential upsets, dark horses, all that jazz. Eric, let me know what your Final Four matchups are, who you got moving on and winning the whole thing.
Well, like I said before, this is the least confident I've ever been when making a bracket. Normally by Tuesday night, Wednesday night, I'm like, you know what, this might be it. This might be it. But there's just so many teams that have potential matchups that are scary. But yeah, I have Arizona, Duke, I got Texas and Gonzaga. Again, I think if Duke beats Oral Roberts, I think they're clear cut. I think they can do it. I said earlier, Arizona's got two bigs that are just dominant, and I just love that. Texas athletic, and the Zags might finally make a Final Four. But yeah, from there, I got Duke and Texas in my final game. So,
and who you got winning it all? Who's cutting down the nets?
As much as I hate to say it, I got Texas. I got.
Gross.
I know.
Between Duke and Texas, and you start off, as much as I hate to say it.
Yeah.
I hate to say either of them.
Yeah, that's true. UNC's
They're about to get flamed by all your buddies. I hope you know that.
It's just, they're a little bit older team. They're, like you were saying, Tanner, earlier, they're so deep. I think they run 9 or 10 guys. I mean, they just athletic, crazy, and with Houston missing their top guy, I think the field's open for them to take it. So, yeah, that's my Final Four, and I got UT taking it all.
Tanner,
that's a sharp pick. My Final Four is Alabama, Marquette, Texas, and UConn. So in that first Final Four matchup, Alabama Marquette is far and away the least confident I am of any of my teams. kind of backed into this one. The carnage I have going on the top of the bracket kind of led to a path for Marquette. So I'm going to go Alabama here. We talked about that. They're number one overall seed, right? Not much more needs to be said about them. On the other side, I have Texas and UConn. Everything Eric just said, give me Texas in that. So I got an Alabama and Texas national championship game. I went back and forth multiple times, choosing number one overall seed. Number one overall seed hasn't won since 2013, but they didn't because it was redacted. So it hasn't even won since before that, right? So it's kind of hard to pick, hard to go with Alabama. Trouble going Texas. I'm glad I came to the decision I did because you went with Texas. I ultimately came to the decision I am going to go with Alabama. They are the number one overall seed, and I think national player of the year contender.
Yeah.
And
they got shooters. I mean, you can't deny it. They got shooters. Or assist men. Assist men. Sorry.
Assist men. They're a really dangerous team.
They are. Absolutely. Yeah. I'm kind of the same way. I got Alabama facing off against Duke, and that is my Final Four team I am the least confident in because in some of my brackets, I have them losing first round. And then this one, I have them in the Final Four. And then on the other side, I have Texas Gonzaga. I got Texas coming out of there. And, of course, I have Duke. And then, so I got Duke versus Texas in the Natty, and I have Duke winning it all, which I am very, very nervous about due to Duke's record in the March Madness recently. But I got the Blue Devils cutting down the nets.
Hey, I don't hate it. I have Duke in a few of mine, but yeah, that first matchup is going to be a little scary.
Yeah,
hottest team in college basketball, man.
But like you said, Eric, if they get past that one, I like all the matchups moving forward.
Yeah.
But yeah, March is here. Best time of year, without doubt. We have some questions of the episode. First one we have from Ryan Kearney of Rody on the Horn podcast. If you haven't checked that one out yet, go check it out. It's everywhere you can listen to a podcast. And his question is, what is your all-time favorite round of 64 March Madness game? Eric, you can go ahead and take this one.
Ooh, for me, it would have to be when Virginia got taken down as the number 1 seed. Not that I have any ties to, what was it, UMBC? Was that?
Yeah.
Not because I have ties to them or ties to Virginia or I dislike Virginia, but I was actually on my senior year spring break on Bourbon Street, and we just got there. All the boys were having fun, getting drinks, and all of a sudden we see everyone crowd around and start freaking out. So until I die, I will never forget where I was whenever the 16 seed took down number 1. So that was an awesome moment.
That's an awesome one. Yeah. I mean, how can you not?
It's history.
Say that.
Yeah.
I mean, being on Bourbon Street in New Orleans, that's a place.
I tell you what, I also will never forget where I was during that game because I was watching it. One of my brother's teammates was with us for their spring break. He's from Virginia Beach, Virginia. Huge Cavalier fan.
Oh, no.
That was a lot of fun. However, he was 6'11" and like 285, so it was very scary for a bit. But once we knew we were all safe, it was pretty fun. I'm not gonna lie.
There, what's your answer?
Yeah, question to answer. So I'm going to throw mine back a little bit. Obviously, pretty sure it's going to be an upset. My favorite one is going to be Florida Gulf Coast over Georgetown.
Yeah.
One of the first upsets that like I have ingrained in my mind in my March Madness memory, and just the way they did it, as you said, Dunk City, the alley oops, breaking the press. They were so much fun to watch. So I'm going to go Florida Gulf Coast because not only did they pull off a crazy upset, but they did it in an awesome fashion to watch.
Yeah, I mean, how can Dunk City? That's a good memory. So a couple of mines that popped up, obviously UMBC beating Virginia, Florida Gulf Coast. Mine involves my champion for this year, Lehigh over Duke when Duke was a number 2 seed. They had an NBA star in the making, CJ McCollum, who just went absolutely bonkers. And in a recent interview, he is like, I took that game more personal than any game because nobody knew who he was, let's be honest. So that's one that I remember, kind of the first big upset I remember. Next question from...
Before we get there,
go ahead.
Dude, that day when Lehigh beat Duke, little me lost half of his Final Four. Missouri lost to Norfolk State.
Yeah.
So I had Missouri and Duke in my Final Four. I lost 2 on the very first day. It was.
Well, if you this is a throwback for Sam. If you want to talk about when Duke lost versus Mercer, if we remember that loss,
yep.
That was a good old. I was in computer class watching that one happen, and again, my bracket fell apart on the spot.
Yep. That little dude hitting the nay after they beat Duke. I remember that.
Also, Georgia Southern.
Yeah,
coach's son hit the game winner.
RJ Hunter,
the coach who had the broken leg falls off of his scooter.
Yeah.
I'm fine. I'm fine.
That
Oh
is
my
an
god!
all-time clip when his son hits a game winner
Yeah.
and falls off a scooter. All-time.
Unbelievable.
Those were some great answers. Last question we have comes from Eric and I's mom, Carol. Shout out, Carol. What is the worst game you have ever witnessed in March Madness? Taryn, go ahead.
For me, this was easy. I think this is a top 2 depressed moment like from sports in my life, and that is the Oregon Iowa game.
Oh yeah.
Iowa was a number 2 seed in the tournament, preseason top 5, and just got absolutely screwed in the seeding. Oregon was one of the most underseeded teams that year. VCU had the COVID issues, so Oregon got the week 1 or the round 1 bye. Came in fresh, and a matchup nightmare. A team that's underseeded and a team that's fresh was just an all-around disaster. Seemed like Oregon didn't miss. That was the best team Iowa had since the 1980s.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember we watched it in our old apartment, and I remember just laying on our couch, like face down. Like my face wasn't even to the side, like when my face was literally just on the couch, just so depressed. I think the only one that tops it is when the Eagles just absolutely bopped Minnesota in the NFC Championship game. But the Iowa Oregon, man, it just felt like that was the year. If Iowa was going to make a run, it was going to be that year, and they just ran into a fresh, underseeded athletic team. So I was so depressed after that. It was so bad.
Eric?
Man, for me, there wasn't one that was like the worst game ever, but the worst Final Four ever was last year. Last year with all the blue bloods of Duke, UNC, Nova, Kansas, it was a dream for anyone that didn't know anything about basketball filling out a bracket, because all they did was like, well, I know Kansas is good, Duke's good, UNC, and they were average at best and just made incredible runs. So I was nonstop. I just nonstop heard, crap from my sister and my mom who beat me in the bracket because they filled out Duke to go, UNC to go, and all the blue bloods to go.
Yeah, that's definitely fair. The Duke UNC game was at least good. I think
Yeah.
Kansas Nova game was not good. But just the amount of casuals that won their bracket because of that is tough.
Elizabeth, I think, won our family bracket last year.
She did. She did indeed.
Shout out Elizabeth, man. For me, I mean, Tanner, this is gonna open up some wounds. And of course, I'm going with Iowa versus Richmond.
Rich what? Rich what?
We were doing that before the show.
We were talking about that.
Go Spiders. Go Spiders.
That's funny. But obviously, we don't want to go too in depth with this one. But
there's nothing funny about
it. Iowa Big Ten champs get smoked by perhaps one of the worst teams in the field. I think the next game they shot like 30% from the field and just got absolutely smacked.
Smoked by Providence.
But that's the worst game. At least in recent memory, I'm sure if I go back, I could find more.
Dude, Richmond was like a 4 or 5 seed in the A10. Like went on a run, got hot in their conference tournament. Like, oh my
god. Yeah,
that was a tough one.
Yeah, especially when I had you chirping about beating Gonzaga and everything.
It's been a good 2 years. Arkansas's got recruits. We didn't have a great year, but we're looking forward to next year already, even though we haven't played.
Must be nice.
More important than recruits, they got transfers.
Muscle in the importer.
Professional importer.
Yeah. He knows what he's doing, that's for sure.
How can you not love Muss, man?
Dude, NASCAR crew chief?
NASCAR crew chief. Eric,
what was y'all's? Yours was the child.
It was like a child book author.
My favorite one, Shaka Smart. His was author of a how to succeed a business book. It is so funny.
Yeah, for those of you who don't know what we're talking about, I don't. Pregame Empire does.
Have you retweet?
I'll retweet. We'll retweet on Twitter, but it's giving all the coaches in the field a different occupation, and they are hilarious. So check out our Twitter for that. But that will wrap it up for episode 86 of Crunch Time with the N326 Duo. Congrats, you have made it to the end of the episode, so shout out to you. Let us know what your brackets are looking like. Who are your dark horses? What matchups you're looking forward to? Who are your upset picks? And who do you have winning it all? Meanwhile, you can follow us on TikTok and Instagram and Twitter at crunchtime_pod. Also, make sure to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel, Crunch Time, with the N326 Duo as well. And lastly, we want to thank my brother for coming on to this special March Madness edition of Crunch Time with the N326 Duo. So thank you. Eric, you got any last words, man?
No, thank y'all for having me. Go Hogs, baby.
I was going to say, Eric, thanks so much for coming on, man. I tell you what, when the bracket was announced and we saw Arkansas and Illinois was in Des Moines, not only was I happy that we got to see such a high-profile game, but obviously, if it was just any other team, I would root for Arkansas because, your guys' connection. But I loathe Illinois. So I will truly be rooting for Arkansas.
We'll call the Hogs.
It's not just me rooting for them because of you guys. It's literally me wanting Arkansas to win by a million.
Hey, Sam better get you a hat or a shirt. You better be wearing some red. We're trying to red it out.
Oh, don't worry. The red will be coming out.
But with that, the clock has run out on this episode, but we'll see you on the next one on Crunch Time.